having many years with you.
I think it would be good if we would talk about the man you are. Frank and I truly appreciate you. Now, we've had a really good time, Mitch, a lot of fun time tonight. But I think the sincerity that you have, I mean, all of you know that Mitch would go every Friday night to see Lane up at the hospital. And he endeared himself to, and I don't care what the weather, and we had a bad winter. He went up there and he would go and visit Lane. And I don't know what all they talked about, but I know this, from all their years, they were roommates for years when they were young men, and they were just out of school, they were in college and out, and they were good buddies, and then they told each other exactly what they thought, and they were still good buddies. Yeah. And I love the man that he is, but there's one thing that I don't think any of you know, many of you don't know about this, but the years when I was so ill, very, very ill, Mitch came to the hospital one night. I'd been in the hospital like a couple of months, and I got so tired of it. And here came Mitch. I was down at the hall, at the end of the hall where my room was, and I started walking down the hall, and he had his guitar. And he sat there, and I was very, very ill. And he sat there, and he just strummed his guitar, and he'd hum a little while. And he talked to me, then he would sing real quietly. How many young men take out time to come to an old woman's room at the hospital and just keep them company? Mitch Bright, that man right there did that. He's a great guy. I told him this last Sunday, I said, you know, Mitch, you're going to be 8 feet tall in heaven. And you are.
And everybody else is going to be 12 feet tall.
I guess you're just not really, what I expected. And I said, well, what'd you expect? He goes, well, I guess I was thinking maybe taller and maybe thinner. And I said, yeah, but other than being short and fat, how do you like me?
Another thing, Mitch, I wasn't even going to mention this because it wasn't really a happy time, but I think it has a good point to it. I remember we've been through a lot, and I remember one time in the parish council, you got me so mad. I actually took off my collar and threw it on the table and said I quit. Father Gregory, who I'd never refused, came to my door twice. 2 days in a row, and I wouldn't even answer the door. I was mad.
It's a gift.
It's a gift. This is really what makes friendship. We know that there's somebody who's a true friend because you have to go through. It's a true friend's not someone who you just go through the nice green meadows, but somebody that you go through the briar patches with. And when you come out of the briar patches and you're still friends, that's a friend for life. And I feel that was really a bonding time for us, a time that tested our friendship and actually end up making it stronger. And so that took a lot of character for you to still speak to me and me, for us to be that good of friends. I feel that there's something special when you go through something like that with a person.
In the same vein, obviously brothers have a normal sibling rivalry. Mitch's and mine was exaggerated, shall we say. Mitch was probably, still is, the only person that just with a type of smile can make my blood boil. There's like nobody else on the face of the earth that can do that to me. And he still does it every once in a while, just for the fun of it. I mean, he'll see me, we're out fly fishing or something in a little boat, and I'm whipping back and forth like this, and he'll just look over and do this. And it's like I'm throwing my rock in the water, and he'll go, like, yeah, know, are we gonna go get it now? You know. But, he also, one of the lessons that he taught me was not to be competitive. I used to be a really, really, really super competitive person, and we used to play ping pong. Mike used to get in on those ping pong games too. Marathon, you know, yeah. Marathon, like, 3 o'clock in the morning downstairs playing ping pong. And Mitch beat me in one game, and then he gave the smirk, and the smirk totally caught me off guard, and I had the ping pong paddle in my hand and whipped it at him as hard as I could. And it was only his reaction to get out of the way that kept it from taking his head right off his shoulders. I mean, his ping pong paddle disintegrated against the wall. And at that moment, I decided that I was no longer ever going to be a competitive person, because anybody that's that competitive that when somebody beats them, they want to kill them. There's something wrong up here. There's a switch that's turned wrong. So that was a valuable lesson for me to learn.
We're good for each other. You and I are good for each other. It took a long time. I remember in the boat one time, because you used to have a problem where everything goes bad for me.
Yeah,
The world, and we're in the boat, and we start going somewhere, and the fish have been biting real good for me like the week before, and we get in the same areas and they won't bite, and he says, no big surprise, I'm in the boat. So I, being a loving brother, I turned and I said, so get the hell out of the boat. And he just looked at it and said, what? And I said, I'd like to catch some fish. Out. And he just looked at me and I said, now maybe you know how stupid that sounds.
Yeah, it worked.
So we're good for each other.
But he does have a tendency once in a while to be slightly prideful.
Yeah,
When it comes to fishing in particular.
Well, you'd have to be thinking of someone else.
We went out to Willow Slough one time, and this was, I had this fly rod, I hadn't used it, but I had this thing and I thought, what the heck? The fish weren't biting, nobody was catching anything. So I grabbed this fly rod, and neither one of us knew anything about fly fishing. And this thing weighed about 8 pounds, was this really nasty thing. I got this big old ugly popper and put it on it, and I'm beating the water, and I finally get the thing out about 20 feet from us, and it hits the water, and a big old bluegill comes up and smacks this thing. And then I didn't know how to get it back in. I mean, I'd never reeled a fish in with it. And I'm fighting this thing, and he's like, wow, what you got on there? What'd you put on there? And before I even had the fish in, he had his fly rod out, and he's putting it together, and he's going, what did you have on there? What did you have on there? Well, then we wound up in that one afternoon basically kind of learning how to fly fish, helping each other, and we caught, I don't know,
2 shoelaces worth.
because I forgot the stringer.
Stringer.
So he said,
Stringer,
you forgot the
he leaves
stringer.
at home, your shoelaces off.
Take your shoelaces off. So we're stringing fish on shoelaces. So what we would do is we would work an area, and all these people around us are watching us. And we're sitting there, we're catching fish after fish. And I mean, if you could just barely pick them up, they were big enough to keep. Anything smaller than that, we were throwing back. I mean, we're catching these huge bluegills. And filled up the shoelace completely. And said, okay, well, pull the other one off. Filled that one up. And then we said, okay, that's it. And what we would do is we'd fish out an area, and then we'd move over on other side of a boat. And then those people would move into the spot where we just were, because obviously that's where the fish were, And then we would fish where they were at and catch the fish in that spot, which would make them really mad. Now, the prideful part was that when we were heading back in, every boat that we went by, Mitch would say, guys having any luck?
How often do you have 2 shoelaces full of fish?
And you'd say, oh, not bad. We caught a couple of bluegills a while ago. They left a string, and there'd be a couple little tiny bluegills. Yeah, what you using? Crickets or redworms or whatever. And then, of course, they have to say, did you guys do any good? Yeah, we got a few. We lift up these 2 bins, stringers full, all the way back into the dock. Every boat we went by. Guys doing any good?
And I learned my lesson
But
that
that was
day
fun.
about when you catch a big fish and you want to mount it, you do.
Yeah, too.
Because I caught a bluegill
It was huge.
that when I did this, you couldn't see any part of my hands. It was huge, beautiful bluegill. And I said, I'm gonna get this stuff, man. I've never had it stuffed. I'm gonna get this fish stuffed though, man. And go back, and some old man was going the other way as we're coming in. Started asking, you know, I made sure the boat was close enough that he'd ask how we did. And, and then I said, and look at this one. I'm gonna have this one stuffed. And he says, you boys don't fish out here much, do you? I said, well, we haven't really fished Mormon Hill before, no, but I mean, you gonna stuff that one? Yeah.
That's big.
There's fish out here 20%, 30% bigger, and they would eat that fish. I've never caught another fish anywhere near that. If I ever see that old man out there, I'm gonna ram him. No. But I really wish I would. That was a big one. Oh man.
I have to say one tiny story that doesn't relate to Mitch. Kate and I went out there one time and went fishing for a week, and in that period we caught 54 bass or something like that. And out of those bass, there were about 10 of them that were keepers, we thought. We didn't know how to measure them. We'd never caught any big bass out of there before. And I just, held them up by the lip and took my ruler and went, 15 inches, 15 and a half inches, and they have to be 14 inches to keep them. And so we went in with like 6 or 7 nice bass and got up, and Kate was so proud. She goes up to the guy in the boat shop or in the rental livery place and said, look at these bass I got. He says, well, just to be on the safe side, let's measure them. And he picks the fish up and lays them down, and he's got this board, and he closes the mouth and pushes it up against the board, and then he takes the tail and he squeezes it down, and there's a mark where 14 inches is. And every one of those fish was too short. And he says, $72.50 a fish if you get caught with those. We had one of the fastest largemouth bass dinners you have ever seen in your life. Those fish were cleaned and cooked and gone in a matter of about half hour. We figured out that we had about, there was about $400 worth of fish. It's probably the most expensive fish dinner anybody ever ate.
Mitch, you have to tell the story about Luke and me.
I'll tell it real quick because I
You do
think
it.
otherwise
You do it
we'd
better than
bore
I do.
everybody to death. But one of my first, two things actually happened with Kate that did not start us off on good. But Kate, for those you don't know, is Jeff's wife, my sister-in-law, and I had a little house. I had a little house over on Johnson Street in Gary, and a real little house, actually about the size of my current garage. Seriously. And Kate was over to visit, and can't remember what was going on, and we were just kind of messing around, and I had this dog named Luke who was almost a Labrador, and he was black, and I thought he was a Labrador because he found ducks. And anyhow, and Luke had never growled at anyone. Luke was a big baby, and Kate stepped into the room, and I can't remember what the deal was, and she was like, we were always just like picking each other, goofing around, and she said something snotty or kind of messing around, and Luke was there, and I swatted Luke on the butt, gave him a and I said, sicker! Like that. Leaps up, wham! Nails her on the leg. Like that. She's screaming. Kill! He did. Kill! And I mean, I wish I had video of me because I was just. I didn't move off the couch. I didn't even get up. I was in absolute shock. And I think it was about 2 months later, things had got to where we were talking. Luke may have been dead by then, I don't know. But I had gone to the restroom, and I came out of the restroom, and we had been talking about karate or something, and Kate came around from somewhere and jumped me from behind. And instinct took over, and she was out there when I wanted to bring her back, and I could still see her. And she went all the way into the middle of the living room, because it was real easy to get her up this way. I was trying to bring her back, and she landed flat on her back, boom, and then begged for air for a while. And I'm standing. So we do things that we get older and can't do anymore. See, now that I heard those same series of stories, we all went
when we first got married, Kate used to go dove hunting with me and Mitch. And we went out this one time, and it had been a misunderstanding about things, and Mitch didn't show up at the time when we were.
Boy, it's really late.
Where's my shotgun?
It's really late, and
Yeah. But basically, it was, Kate kind of said something along the lines of, you know, she does have red hair, green eyes, Irish temper, a little Italian in there. Basically said, go away and don't come back until you're ready to apologize or I'm going to shoot you. Something along that line.
With a loaded,
She had a shotgun in her
She
hand.
had a loaded shotgun. I backed off.
And he came back about 5 minutes later and he had his hands behind his back and he was scuffing his toes in the dirt. I'm sorry.
A man's got to know his limitations.
Yeah.
One more story, honey. Tell them about the time we were out hunting and
Oh,
Taylor.
With Taylor? That was an interesting story. Taylor was, Mitch's Labrador, was a good dog. And it was before the season, and he just wanted to take her out and let her run for a little while. We went out, and
You called me.
he had the shotgun with him. We went out to this farm where we used to hunt, and he and Taylor disappeared over this hill. And Kate and I were sitting there talking and stuff, and then we heard Mitch screaming off in the distance, and heard Taylor barking. And then Mitch yelling, no, no, and then heard the shotgun go off. And then Mitch is yelling, and Taylor is running up over the hill towards us. And he's yelling, no, no, and we're calling her. And he's saying, she's been sprayed. And I'm thinking, she's been sprayed with shot. He blasted her, because he shot his other dogs. Why should he shoot his dog?
Wait, the dog I shot needed shooting. And that's a fact.
Yes, Ryder needed shooting. But anyway, Taylor comes running over the hill, and then here's Mitch. He's running over the hill too, and we're yelling, here, Taylor, and Mitch is yelling, no, no, she's been sprayed. And we're going, thinking, yeah, she's been sprayed. She's probably bleeding all over the place, like that. And he said, buy a skunk. And we're going, no, no.
Oh, she stunk.
Yeah, she stunk real bad. We had my car. It was interesting. We rolled
The
up.
shotgun sound was me firing around over the top of it. I wasn't trying to hit the skunk, but I saw her pointing. She had pointing instincts, and I couldn't figure out what she was pointing. And as I walked up, I saw something that looked like a cat with a white stripe on its tail. And they were nose to nose. And I said, Taylor, no. Taylor, and I started screaming, heel, no. And then I took the gun and I fired it over the skunk, and the skunk just went. And then Taylor moved 1 inch too close, and that skunk spun around, and I heard the sound, and Taylor went, right! Which the yipe came shortly after the shotgun. Yep. You shoot one dog. You're marked for life. And the dog I shot, I called an old boy from down south and told him everything that happened, how far away the dog was when I shot, how the dog had run off for the 5th time, and he said, well, Mr. Mitchell, I just don't understand why you're upset. Hell, I got dogs out in the kennel. We don't let them go in the water. They'll sink. I said, well, that ain't my idea of training. Well, did she hunt good for you after you shot her? Yeah. Well, there you go. I'm going to be calling another trainer. Thank you. He was serious.
And the vet was very surprised.
Bernie was with us that
He
day.
couldn't
Bernie.
believe that Mitch was honest and admitted that he shot the dog on purpose.
Bernie tried to stop me. Strider was a full-blooded English pointer whose grandfather had won the Nationals 3 times. This dog was 65 pounds of muscle, and everyone knows that the brain is fat. This dog had no fat.
He had a picture of a bird between her ears.
And we know
That
he
was
was,
it.
we're pretty sure Strider was a great bird dog, but we can't prove it because he never hunted in the same state.
It
does.
And Strider had a great nose, and I'm sure that he smelled quail in
Somewhere.
Kentucky or Tennessee. And that's where he was heading.
To give you an example, one time I'm reading through the books, and it says you take a rope, you get it this long, you put hard rubber balls in the front, it'll hit the front of the dog's legs, that'll mess him up. You take the check cord, or you take the check cord, you tie a loop so that the back leg hooks the back leg, the loop will hook the back leg now, or you get logging chain. Well, I knew the dog, so we go out hunting one
The
day.
last time we hunted with you.
And I pull out Strider, and I put on the check cord, and I tie a loop to hook the back leg. And I pull out these 2 rubber balls, and I snap it on the front. And I pulled out about 20 pounds worth of logging chain. At least 20 pounds. Strung nose on. This thing looked like a bad bondage movie for dogs. It was awful. And I let the dog go, and he just went, zoom! And all the chains did was give you something to go, oh, he went that way. You could only trail him. He come back about 2 hours later, runs up to us like the little mouse.
No, remember he was on the other side of that ditch or
He swam that pond.
swam across the pond with 20 pounds of logging chain hanging up. He's going,
He's in the middle.
trying to keep his head above the water.
I'm thinking, do I want him to get out? I wasn't sure. So he finally makes it across, and then he disappears.
So we figured the dog's gonna come and hunt for us. He's tired. He just kind of came up like, you're still here.
But he'd come back like 2 hours later, and he'd run up to you, and it was like, birds. Man, he's thinking, quail, where were you? And then he'd be like, and he'd kind of do this. Phew! And that day, it was the 5th time he was running off, and I went, Bernie, move. And I moved, Bernie, move. And he moved it, boom! About 60 yards. Dog, ooh, that was closer than I expected. So we went over, Bernie picked him up, and he had about 8 little places bleeding on his leg, and we sat him down, and he started to listen. And he went out and started running. I said, heel, and he healed. And around front, the company came.
When he says heel, he doesn't mean like all of the places closed
Yeah, not
up.
the that would be heel. We don't do that. We do it the old way with oil. But anyhow, but Bernie sets the dog down and it starts listening, and Bernie says, well, now what are we going to do? I said, it's the first time the dog's ever hunted. We're going to hunt. Well, it's bleeding. Not that bad. I don't know if we got birds that day. And then we eventually, at the end of the day, took them to the vet, and it cost me another, however, I don't want to talk about it.
So tell Diana.
Yes.
Why was it the last time you hunted with the dog? What happened?
I finally, because next time I took him out, he just started doing it again and kept doing it, and I realized that I was short a key ingredient for hunting with this dog, a horse. He came from where they hunted before, and I just sold him. I took him down to Emo, Indiana, and got $175 for him, and bought a Labrador Retriever that
Ate your wall.
ate my
That was
wall.
a beast. We went with him to look at the dog. And he has all these cute little puppies down in there, friendly, this one is 70% bigger than all the rest of the puppies. Walks up to Mitch, I guess grabs hold of his shoelaces and starts pulling on it. I looked at Kate and I said, that's the one he's going to pick. That was the one he picked. The biggest, the meanest, the toughest
It's easy.
one.
You can't put in what's not there.
You mean Strider or
Standing. This is
Strider
right
or
there.
No.
That's my good friend Terry Felix.
Taylor?
Taylor.
Everybody, this is Terry Felix. Wonderful, beautiful human being. And to know him is to love him. I sure love him.
From where?
Terry and I met through the Godspell show, right? And you taught at Griffith, right?
Yeah, substitute.
You substitute taught.
You look familiar, that's why I
You
asked.
may know him. He substituted there a bit, and then he's been involved with Lake Central Theater Guild.
You didn't hit me.
Forever.
Both one time.
And the way, and God uses, like Terry and I, just in the strangest places, and that's why Allison is named Allison. We met, now, your name isn't Allison now. We met at the Lance Theater when your wife was pregnant with or had Alice.
No, we had, Allison was with us.
That's right. And
You were right.
yes.
I was.
And you know, it's due anytime. And that's when we left the theater and you said, Allison, I like Allison. And that's how I got her name.
Thank you.
But then the way we hadn't seen each other, it was really weird, hadn't seen each other for years and years. And we went and we'd gone to see Superstar. I believe, was it Superstar or was it
No, Donnie.
Donnie? Was it Donnie?
Technicolor.
The show in Chicago.
Oh,
And we're getting ready to leave, and there's some balding fella standing by himself, because everyone has left, and the orchestra just got done, and some guy's going all by himself. And I looked over and I thought, I like that guy. He stuck around to hear the orchestra, and I started walking, I go, I know that guy. And so, here he's a good guy. Well, I know everybody wants to go home, so I'll just say thank you. And I'm very, 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 very honored. And actually, really good, honey. I'm impressed.
was
And
it a surprise? Was it a surprise?
to me, I mean, she was talking about doing stuff, and I mean, how often you turn 40, you know. But I figured something was up because she's been doing a lot of email, and the computer for her is, you know.
Dad, I'm good with email now.
And you didn't intercept any of her emails?
No, I use Calypso, and Calypso is separate. And matter of
I asked
fact,
him, I said, you can't read my email.
no, I use a special package. This is Alley Cat at BrightSites.com, and that's the wife at BrightSites.com.
The wife.
And my little one is Flower Power at BrightSites.com, and Seth is Seth at BrightSites.com. And then there's Dog at BrightSites.com, but she doesn't get any email, so send Meg email. But yeah, I thought something might be up, but this is it's very nice. I'm overwhelmed.
Hopefully
And
surprise.
good friends, this is for those of you who aren't, this is Mike Baker, and he's in this photograph somewhere here, younger. Mike and I go back a long ways. Actually, what's one of the funniest lines I still say sometimes is when we did the cards late at night, and I think of, one of us is me, and it ain't you.
Yeah.
Was it you that said it?
No, I think it's Jim Long.
Jim Long?
It's either Jim or Brad.
We've been watching the Stooges, and one of them, I think Larry has a line where he says, one of us is crazy, and it ain't you. And we've been playing cards, and it got real late, and somebody had said, like, too tired. Someone said, dill the cards, will you?
No, Jim said
That was Jim.
We're in Jim DeVries' backyard at 10.
And then this yellow line, I don't remember why it seemed funny, probably because it was 3 o'clock in the morning, but somebody just said, hey, you know, one of us is me, and it ain't you. And I just always thought that was funny. Mike's a good friend, and Mike and I just thought we'd be professional musicians, and we're just fathers instead, and it's a lot better. Yes. Mike's an excellent musician. Yeah, that's him here with the, is that a Kathy Rigby? Dorothy Hamill, yeah, that's Mike with the Dorothy Hamill, and I'm doing the,
Zach Hansen.
yeah, Zach Hansen look. And Glenn's in his own world, as always.
Yes.
And he still is.
Glenn, this
Do you
guy,
still play the drums?
I can.
Do you have the set?
No, I've had sets, I've done dumb things, and my blessed wife,
I put a picture of his set up there.
yeah, I have a bad habit of switching hobbies, and I cannot afford them. So I buy $500 worth of camera gear, sell it for $200
Sure.
to get a $700 guitar, which I later sell for $300 to get a $1,000 drum set, which I later sell for $400.
What's for sale?
Yeah, right now I have nothing for sale, but I have no savings either.
He buys high and sells low, and I
That's right.
the other way around.
But Glenn was just really, really good, and it was a lot of fun. But he's probably 13 and could play every bit as good as probably Alvin Lee or at
I used to
that
play
age.
the flute, but I kind of quit.
At 13, he could play like Alvin Lee or Clapton or just about anybody, and it's a shame because what's he do? Work in a can factory or sheet metal? And not that that's bad, but
Coils.
my father used to put up with all this equipment in the house for how many years, Mom?
Many.
many, many years at incredible volumes, but they always, I guess, knew where we were.
Because Greg played drums too, you know, he's
Right.
10 years older than you.
And I play drums.
And Jeff played drums, and Dan beat the heck out of drums.
Yep. So we used to just have this incredible loud noise going on, and my dad would be in the workshop putting up with all of it. But about once every other week, he'd walk in and he'd say to Glenn, he'd go, "This was the thing." That meant stop.
Well, there was also a rule that got started one time where I had a bedroom in the basement, right outside where the